Ginger, this 5,000-year-old spice already sitting in your kitchen, has been shown in clinical trials to lower fasting blood sugar, reduce hemoglobin A1C, and improve insulin resistance in people with type 2 diabetes. The monthly cost comes in under $2, and that's what makes this so frustrating. 40 million Americans are living with diabetes right now, and another 115 million adults have prediabetes. More than 2 in 5 adults are walking around with blood sugar problems, and 8 out of 10 of those people have no idea. Once you look at adults over 65, the numbers get worse. Diabetes affects nearly 29% of American seniors. Prediabetes hits over 52%. And when you combine those two figures, roughly 80% of seniors in this country are dealing with some form of blood sugar dysfunction or metabolic syndrome. $412.9 billion a year, that's what diabetes costs America. The average patient spends close to $20,000 annually on medical expenses. And yet ginger, the remedy we're covering today, one backed by real clinical evidence, runs between $1.50 and $10 a month. By the end of this video, you'll understand what the science says ginger can do, how it works inside your body, why your doctor has never brought it up, and how to use it safely, especially if you're already on other medications. Before we get into the research, I need to say something clearly. This video is educational content, not medical advice. Ginger does not replace your prescribed diabetes medications. If you're taking blood thinners, diabetes drugs, or blood pressure medications, you need to have a conversation with your doctor before adding ginger to your routine. I'll explain exactly why in the safety section of this video, and please do not skip that part. With that covered, let's get into what the research actually tells us. Section 2. What the clinical trials found. Back in 2014, Dr. Mozaffari Khosravi and a research team at Shahid Sadoghi University of Medical Sciences in Iran published one of the most important ginger and blood sugar studies ever conducted. They designed it as a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, which is the gold standard in medical research. 88 patients with type 2 diabetes received either 3 grams of ginger powder daily or a placebo, and the trial lasted 8 weeks. What the ginger group experienced was a 10.5% drop in fasting blood sugar, along with improvements in hemoglobin A1C and insulin resistance, all statistically significant. That same year, Dr. Arablu at Iran University of Medical Sciences ran a separate 12-week trial with 70 type 2 diabetic patients using a smaller dose of just 1.6 grams of ginger per day. Fasting blood glucose dropped, hemoglobin A1C dropped, insulin levels fell, and insulin resistance improved. On top of that, triglycerides came down by 45% and total cholesterol fell by 15%. Dr. Shidfar and colleagues followed up in 2015 with a 3-month trial at 3 grams of ginger powder per day, and the results were even more striking. Fasting glucose fell by 19.4 milligrams per deciliter. Hemoglobin A1C fell by 0.77%, and both insulin levels and insulin resistance improved, all at a significance level of p less than 0.001. 2 years later, Dr. Makhdoumi Arzadi at Tehran University of Medical Sciences tested 2 grams of ginger daily for 10 weeks and recorded a 26.3 milligram per deciliter reduction in fasting blood sugar, plus a 0.38% improvement in hemoglobin A1C. And then came one of the more telling studies. Dr. El Gayar's 2019 trial took 80 patients and compared metformin alone against metformin combined with 1.8 grams of ginger per day. The patients who received the combination outperformed the metformin-only group on every single marker, including fasting blood glucose, post-meal blood glucose, hemoglobin A1C, lipid levels, and insulin resistance. Now, to step back and look at the big picture, Dr. Zhu and colleagues published a systematic review and meta-analysis in 2018 through evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine, pulling together 10 randomized controlled trials covering 490 individuals. Their exact words were that the data provides, quote, convincing evidence for the effects of ginger on glucose control, insulin sensitivity, and improvement of blood lipid profile. The freshest analysis arrived in 2025 from a team at Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine and Mercer University. Their umbrella review in Frontiers in Pharmacology examined 5 separate meta-analyses and found that ginger lowered fasting blood sugar by an average of 21.24 milligrams per deciliter while also improving hemoglobin A1C. Their language was direct, stating that the findings, quote, robustly support ginger's use as an adjunct therapy for managing type 2 diabetes. And what about that 90-minute claim in the title of this video? A 2023 randomized controlled trial published in the journal Foods tested a ginger aqueous extract alongside a glucose tolerance test, measuring blood sugar at 30, 60, 90, and 120 minutes. The ginger group showed significantly lower glucose at every single checkpoint, with both the total glucose response and the maximum blood sugar spike dropping by a statistically significant margin. Most natural remedies work through one or two pathways, and that's it. Ginger is different. Researchers have identified at least 7 separate mechanisms through which it affects blood sugar, and that breadth of action explains why it shows up across so many different glycemic markers in clinical trials. The first mechanism is called GLUT4 translocation, and the easiest way to picture it is this. Your muscle cells have glucose transporters that act like doors, letting sugar pass from your bloodstream into the cells where it can be used for energy. Ginger's primary compound, 6-gingerol, increases the number of those doors that open on your muscle cells, which means your body pulls sugar out of the blood faster. Second, ginger activates an enzyme called AMPK, which scientists refer to as the master metabolic switch of your cells. Once AMPK flips on, it promotes glucose uptake, burns fatty acids, and tells your liver to stop dumping excess sugar into your bloodstream. And that brings us to the third mechanism, which ties directly to the works while you sleep claim. At night, while you're asleep, your liver becomes the primary source of blood glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. People with type 2 diabetes have a liver that runs this process on overdrive, which is exactly why so many wake up with high morning blood sugar readings. Ginger suppresses 2 enzymes that drive gluconeogenesis called PPEC and G6-PACE, and here's the part that caught my attention. That is the same primary mechanism metformin uses. Ginger helps quiet your liver's sugar production while you sleep. The fourth mechanism surprised me when I first read it. Animal studies showed that 6-gingerol dramatically raised levels of a hormone called GLP-1 and appeared to block the DPP-4 inhibitor enzyme that breaks GLP-1 down by 40 to 50%. GLP-1 should sound familiar to you because that's the exact hormone targeted by Ozempic and Wegovy, medications that cost around $1,000 a month. The DPP-4 enzyme that degrades GLP-1 is the same one targeted by Januvia, which runs about $500 a month. I need to stress that this GLP-1 finding comes from animal research and hasn't been fully confirmed in humans yet. But the fact that a kitchen spice appears to activate the same pathways as some of the most expensive diabetes drugs on the market is hard to ignore. On top of all that, ginger works as a serious anti-inflammatory agent. A meta-analysis covering 16 randomized controlled trials with over 1,000 participants confirmed that ginger brings down CRP, high-sensitivity CRP, and TNF-alpha, which are markers of the chronic inflammation that fuels insulin resistance. Ginger also shields your insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas from damage caused by advanced glycation end products, and it slows down the enzymes that break apart complex carbohydrates in your gut, which reduces sugar absorption after meals. 7 mechanisms from a single spice. With this much evidence on the table, you'd expect your doctor to bring it up, but the reasons they don't come down to regulation, economics, evidence standards, and institutional guidelines, not some kind of cover-up. Start with the guidelines themselves. The American Diabetes Association's 2026 Standards of Care states outright that supplementation with herbs or spices is, quote, not recommended for glycemic benefits. The ADA specifically calls out cinnamon and turmeric as lacking sufficient evidence. Unlike cinnamon, ginger has umbrella reviews describing the evidence as robust. But that guideline your endocrinologist and primary care doctor follow doesn't distinguish between different natural compounds, and most of them won't deviate from it. Then there's the regulatory wall. Under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, supplements fall under food regulations, not drug regulations. The FDA's own language says that, unlike drug products, there are no provisions in the law for the FDA to approve dietary supplements for safety or effectiveness before they reach the consumer. Ginger cannot legally be marketed as a diabetes treatment no matter what the research shows. But here's the thing, and this is the part that really matters. Natural compounds like gingerol can't be easily patented. After Supreme Court decisions in 2012 and 2013, isolating and purifying a natural product is no longer enough to claim a patent. Without patent protection, no pharmaceutical company will invest the $1 to $2 billion it takes to get full FDA drug approval, because any competitor could sell the same ginger extract the very next day. which means the large-scale, multi-year, multi-thousand patient trials needed to change clinical guidelines will almost certainly never receive industry funding. Meanwhile, compounds like berberine face the same patenting challenges, which is why you won't see big pharma funding head-to-head trials between natural remedies and existing drugs. That's the real answer. The science exists. The system to validate natural remedies does not because there's no profit model to pay for the process. Not every physician dismisses this research, though. Dr. Rashmi Muller at UCLA's Gonda Diabetes Center holds board certifications in both endocrinology and integrative medicine, and provides consultations that include supplement guidance for diabetes patients. The University of Wisconsin's Integrative Health Program has published favorable assessments of ginger for blood sugar. These voices are out there in mainstream medicine, they just haven't become the majority yet. This is the section I told you not to skip, and I meant it. Ginger is a powerful compound, and powerful compounds demand respect, especially for anyone over 60 who's already on medications. Blood thinning is the #1 safety concern. Ginger contains salicylates and impairs platelet aggregation, and there are real case reports showing how dangerous this can get. One 76-year-old woman saw her INR, the measurement of blood clotting ability, jump to 7.0 after she started ginger, when the normal therapeutic range sits between 2 and 3. Another patient's INR hit 10. A third patient who was taking warfarin watched their INR spike from 2.7 all the way to 8.0 on just a 48 milligram daily ginger supplement. Those are life-threatening numbers. If you're on warfarin, Eliquis, Xarelto, aspirin, or clopidogrel, a conversation with your doctor before starting ginger isn't optional. Hypoglycemia comes in as the second concern. Anyone already taking insulin, metformin, sulfonylureas, or GLP-1 medications needs to understand that adding ginger could push blood sugar too low, which is dangerous. Monitoring your levels closely with your doctor's involvement is the only safe approach. Ginger can also lower blood pressure, which creates a risk for anyone already on blood pressure medications. Doses above 6 grams per day are known to cause reflux, heartburn, and diarrhea. And Johns Hopkins Medicine puts the maximum recommended daily intake at 4 grams. You should also stop ginger 2 weeks before any scheduled surgery because of the bleeding risk. Over 60 drug interactions have been documented with ginger. Treat it with the same seriousness you'd give any prescription medication because it acts like one. Section 6. How to use ginger safely and effectively. Once you and your doctor agree that ginger is appropriate for your situation, here's what the clinical evidence supports. Dried ginger powder produced the strongest results across trials at doses between 1.6 and 3 grams per day, taken consistently for a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks. That's the range the science backs. For anyone just starting, the smart approach is to begin low at 500 milligrams to 1 gram per day for the first 2 weeks, then build up gradually to 2 grams daily. Taking it with meals improves absorption and cuts down on stomach irritation. And splitting the daily dose into 2 or 3 portions across your meals works better than taking everything at once. When it comes to form, dried ginger powder is both the most studied and the cheapest option, costing about $1.50 to $3 per month when purchased in bulk. Capsules offer the most convenience and typically run $5 to $10 per month. If tea appeals to you more, grate about 1 tablespoon of fresh ginger, steep it in a cup of hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. And drink it with or after meals, 1 to 3 cups a day. Stirring half a teaspoon of ginger powder into oatmeal, yogurt, or soup works just as well. For those using a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you'll have the advantage of tracking real-time responses to ginger and can work with your doctor to adjust timing and dosage based on your personal glucose patterns. One thing worth addressing about the overnight blood sugar benefit: no clinical trial has specifically compared bedtime ginger against morning ginger. But multiple trials demonstrated that ginger reduces fasting blood sugar, which is measured after an overnight fast. And we know ginger suppresses the liver enzymes responsible for overnight glucose production. The biological mechanism for an overnight benefit is there, even though the exact timing hasn't been isolated in a dedicated study. Section 7. The bigger picture. 5,000 years of medicinal use backs up what these modern trials are finding. Ayurveda, the traditional medicine system of India, gave ginger the name Vishwabhishaja, which translates to universal medicine. Ancient Indian physicians identified diabetes centuries before Western medicine did, calling it madhumeha, meaning honey urine, and they diagnosed it by noticing that ants were drawn to patients' urine. Around 600 BCE, the surgeon Sushruta described two types of diabetes that map almost perfectly to what we now call type 1 and type 2, and ginger featured in anti-diabetic formulations going back thousands of years. Traditional Chinese medicine documented ginger over 2,500 years ago, classifying it as a warm-natured yang herb that warms the middle burner, which is the TCM concept for metabolic processing. That concept maps closely to our modern understanding of metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. What these clinical trials are uncovering isn't really new information. It's scientific confirmation of patterns that traditional healers observed across millennia of practice. And the cultural timing lines up too. Modern medicine is moving toward what's now called the food as medicine movement, a market valued at $25 billion and projected to reach $36.6 billion by 2034. Section 8, Conclusion. Here's where everything lands. Multiple randomized controlled trials show that ginger powder at 1.6 to 3 grams per day can cut fasting blood sugar by roughly 10 to 17%, improve hemoglobin A1C, reduce insulin resistance, lower inflammation, and improve cholesterol markers in people with type 2 diabetes. A 2025 umbrella review covering 5 meta-analyses described the evidence as, quote, robust. All of that for under $10 a month. But the evidence does carry limitations. Most studies enrolled fewer than 100 participants and lasted only 8 to 12 weeks. Some meta-analyses found no significant effect. The American Diabetes Association does not endorse herbal supplements for blood sugar management. And the safety profile calls for real caution, especially for seniors on blood thinners, diabetes medications, or blood pressure drugs. Ginger will not cure your diabetes, and it does not replace your medications. What it may be, though, is one of the most overlooked and affordable evidence-backed tools available to the 80% of American seniors living with diabetes or prediabetes. Talk to your doctor about it, show them this research, and make the decision together about whether this 5,000-year-old remedy deserves a place in your health routine. If this video gave you something useful, go ahead and hit subscribe along with that notification bell. We put out new evidence-based health content every week for adults over 60. Send this to someone you care about who's working on their blood sugar. And drop a comment letting me know, have you ever tried ginger for blood sugar? I read every single one of them. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.